All right, today we're going to go over the answers to the bell work problems from Wednesday, September 23rd. Here, there are two problems, and the directions were that you only had to choose one. Both problems are very similar, except they just have different key vocabulary words in them. So number one says the measure of angle ABD and the measure of angle BDE are supplementary angles. We know that supplementary means that these two angles are going to add up to 180 degrees. Number two starts off the same way, but it says the measure of angle ABD and the measure of angle BDE are complementary angles. In this case, that means these two angles are going to add up to 90, because we know complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. So we're going to go through and I'm going to show you how to solve both problems, but remember you only need to solve one of them. All right, so for number one, where they say measure of angle ABD and the measure of angle ABD are supplementary, so we know that their measures are going to add up to equal 180. So that's how you want to start off. You want to start off by saying, hey, I know that since these two angles are supplementary, the measure of angle ABD plus the measure of angle BDE is going to equal 180 degrees. Then from there, you can go through and you can substitute in the expressions that represent those angles. So in the problem, it tells us that the measure of angle ABD is 3x plus 12. So here, in for the measure of angle ABD, I substituted in that 3x plus 12. The problem also tells us that the measure of angle BDE is equal to 7x minus 32 degrees. So in your equation here, where you see the measure of angle BDE, you're going to substitute in that expression 7x minus 32. Now we have an equation that we're going to solve. So the first step is to combine like terms. 3x plus 7x gives us 10x. 12 minus 32 gives us negative 20. So 10x minus 20 equals 180. You can kind of see here already what the next step is. We need to take that minus 20 and move it over to the other side. So to move something over to the other side, we need to use an inverse operation. So you have to ask yourself, how can I undo subtracting 20? What is the inverse of subtraction? And it is addition. So you're going to add 20 to both sides of the equation. When you do that, you get 10x equals 200. Remember the default operation in algebra and equations here is multiplication. So that 10x means 10 times x. So 10 times x equals 200. How do you undo multiplying by 10? You divide by 10. So you're going to divide by 10 on both sides of this equation, because whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other, and you're going to get that x is equal to 20. But you have to be careful here. You can't quit the problem and be done, because the problem doesn't say find x. If it said find x, you would be done. But it says find the measures of both angles. So now that we know x is 20, we can take that 20 and substitute it back into our expressions here to find the measure of each angle. So here from the problem, the measure of angle ABD is equal to 3x plus 12. Everywhere we see an x, we want to replace it with a 20 because we just solved and found that x is equal to 20. So we get the measure of angle ABD is equal to 3 times 20 plus 12, which when you calculate that is 72 degrees. Now that we have found the measure of angle ABD, we have a couple options for figuring out what is the measure of angle BDE. The first option would be to do the same thing, substitute the x equals 20 into the expression 7x minus 32. And the second way would be, we know these two angles are supplementary. The problem tells us that. So if the measure of angle ABD is equal to 72, I can take 180 minus 72 to find that the measure of angle BDE would be 108 degrees. Either way, either subtracting the 72 from 180 or substituting the 20 in for x in the expression 7x minus 32, both ways will give you an answer of 108 degrees for the measure of angle BDE. Problem 2 is a very, very similar setup, except this time angle ABD and angle BDE are complementary angles, which we've already said complementary means they add up to 90 degrees. Those two angles have a sum of 90 degrees for their measures. So that's how you're going to start off. You're going to write an equation. You're going to say, since they are complementary angles, I know that the measure of angle ABD plus the measure of angle BDE is going to equal 90 degrees. Then you're going to go through and you're going to substitute in the expressions for those angles. So the measure of angle ABD from the problem here is 5y plus 1. So everywhere I see an ABD in the problem, I'm going to substitute in that expression 5y plus 1. From our problem, the measure of angle BDE is equal to 3y minus 7 degrees. So in my equation here, where I see that measure of angle BDE, I'm going to substitute in that expression, 3y minus 7. So now I have an algebraic equation that I can solve. 5y plus 1 plus 3y minus 7 equals 90. So the first step is we're going to, on the left-hand side of the equal sign, combine like terms. So 5y plus 3y is 8y. 1 minus 7 is negative 6. So we get 8y minus 6 equals 90. Remember, when we're solving an equation, the goal is to isolate the variable, to get the variable on one side of the equal sign by itself. So to move that minus 6 over to the other side, I'm going to add 6 to both sides, and I get 8y equals 96. Now remember that 8y is 8 times y. So to get y by itself, I have to do the opposite of multiplying by 8 to both sides of the equation. So I'm going to divide by 8 on both sides of the equation. Oh, you can't see it here. To get that, let me move this up. Y is equal to 12. Now, just like in number 1, we are not done. The problem doesn't just say find y. It says find the measures of both angles. So just like in the last problem, we're going to take it. We know that the measure of angle ABD is equal to 5y plus 1 degrees. But now we know that y is 12. So everywhere we see a y in this expression, we're going to substitute in a 12. Then we get that the measure of angle ABD is equal to 5 times 12 plus 1 degrees. When you do the math there, you get that the measure of angle ABD is 61 degrees. Just like in the first problem, we have a choice now to figure out the measure of angle BDE. You can take the 12 and substitute it in for y in the expression 3y minus 7. Or you can use the fact that the angles are complementary to help you solve for angle BDE. If these two angles add up to 90 degrees, and we know that the measure of angle ABD is 61, to find the measure of angle BDE, you take 90 and you subtract the 61 degrees to give you that the measure of angle BDE is 29 degrees.